A recently separated man takes a temporary overnight job maintaining an old underground municipal reservoir pressure facility beneath a shrinking town. The tunnels once connected to abandoned flood control systems and emergency infrastructure no one uses anymore. The job appears simple: inspect gauges, record pressure changes, and acknowledge maintenance alerts. There are a few odd procedures hidden in an outdated binder, not framed as rules, just old operational notes. One note says, if the intercom announces maintenance personnel after 2:13 a.m., do not answer. There are no scheduled personnel below level C. The narrator initially assumes it's leftover bureaucracy. Then the intercom starts using his voice. The emotional layer is post-divorce isolation and the feeling of becoming invisible. The horror mechanism is an underground system that slowly learns people by listening. Escalation comes through logs, recorded messages, and impossible acknowledgments. Ending. The narrator escapes, but months later begins hearing maintenance announcements where no speakers exist. See, full narrative script. I took the job because staying in my apartment had become harder than sleeping somewhere else. That's probably the shortest explanation. After the divorce, I started developing routines I never used to have. Not healthy ones either. I drive around after midnight with nowhere specific to go. Stop at gas stations I didn't need. Sit in parking lots with the engine running. Home had started feeling temporary. Not sad exactly, just borrowed. The apartment still had unopened boxes against the wall 3 months after I moved in. Some nights I'd look at them and honestly couldn't remember what was inside. When you live with someone for 12 years and suddenly don't anymore, silence changes shape. You notice things. The refrigerator humming, neighbors walking upstairs, your own breathing. Eventually, I started looking for overnight work because being awake alone at 2 in the morning felt less miserable if someone was paying me. I found the listing online. Temporary municipal maintenance technician. Night shift. 3 weeks minimum. The pay wasn't incredible, but it was enough. No experience required. Monitoring systems. Logging pressure readings. Basic inspections. The town was about an hour outside where I lived. Small place. One of those towns you pass through without realizing you've passed through it. Half-empty storefronts. Old brick buildings. Places with faded signs that still advertised businesses that closed years ago. The interview lasted maybe 15 minutes. The utilities supervisor looked exhausted before I even sat down. Gray hair, coffee breath, desk covered in papers. He glanced at my application and said, "You worked maintenance before?" I told him apartment repairs and warehouse work. Not exactly true. Not exactly false either. He nodded. "You okay with underground spaces?" I said sure. Then he stared at me for a second longer than felt normal, like he almost wanted to say something else. Instead, he just said, "Night shift starts Monday." That was it. No personality tests. No real questions. No discussion. I remember thinking either they were desperate or this job sucked. Turned out both things were true. The facility sat near the edge of town behind a chain-link fence and a locked gate. From outside, it looked tiny. Just a squat concrete building with a parking lot and utility sheds. Most of the actual structure sat underground. Beneath, there were several maintenance levels connected to old reservoir systems and pressure tunnels. The place had apparently been expanded in pieces over decades. Different projects, different contractors. Nobody bothered making it make sense. So parts of the underground levels looked newer, while others felt like bunkers from another century. Paint peeled from walls, rust-climbed pipes. Some hallways narrowed for no obvious reason. Everything smelled damp. Not sewage, not mold exactly, just old water and concrete. Cold air lived down there, even in summer. My shift started at 10. I relieved a guy named Martin. Late 50s. Thin, permanent bags under his eyes. He looked like he'd spent years not sleeping enough. He showed me the basics. Pressure gauges, inspection routes, equipment checks. Half the job was writing numbers into logs no one probably read. Every hour, I'd walk designated sections and verify system status. Easy, boring, exactly what I wanted. Around midnight, he brought me into a break room near level B. Tiny place, microwave, coffee machine, metal table. Then he handed me a worn binder. Operational notes. I flipped through it. Most pages were maintenance procedures, emergency contacts, equipment shutdown instructions. Then I noticed several pages looked older. Different paper, different handwriting, typed notes taped over sections. Things crossed out. One note read, "Avoid using Eastern Service Corridor access after pipe replacement work." No explanation. Another, "Do not acknowledge intercom maintenance announcements during unscheduled periods." I looked up. What does that mean? Martin shrugged. Old stuff. Unscheduled periods? He took a sip of coffee. No idea. I laughed a little. He didn't. Then he stood. Anyway, if you hear weird noises, pressure shifts do that sometimes. Weird noises. Pipes. Then he walked out. That first night was mostly uneventful. I listened to podcasts. Ate vending machine crackers. Made my rounds. Around 1:30, I noticed the facility felt larger at night. Not physically, psychologically. Hallways seemed longer. The silence between mechanical sounds stretched farther. Every noise traveled. Footsteps echoed. Pipe vibrations rolled through walls. At 2:13 exactly, I heard the intercom click. Static, then a voice. "Maintenance personnel arriving level C." I looked up. That was it. No name, no follow-up. Just a dull announcement. I waited. Nothing happened. I figured someone was working late. Construction maybe. I wrote it off. Around 3, I finished my inspection route and passed level C access. Nobody there. No vehicles. No workers. No sounds. Nothing. I remember standing there for a moment. Just staring. Then moving on. Second night. Same routine. Same logs. Same tunnels. At 2:13 the intercom clicked again. Static. Maintenance personnel arriving level C. Same exact voice. Same cadence. Same timing. This time I remember the note. "Do not acknowledge announcements during unscheduled periods." I almost laughed. Because who acknowledges intercoms? Who talks back? I ignored it. Finished my rounds. Around 3:30, I found something strange. A clipboard near service tunnel. Pressure logs. Fresh handwriting. Dates from that night. I stared for several seconds. Someone had filled entries after midnight. Inspection initials. Readings. Times. I looked around. Nobody. I carried the clipboard upstairs. Morning shift arrived around 6. I asked Martin. He looked at it and frowned. Then he said, "Where'd you find that?" "Lower service corridor." He stared longer than seemed necessary. Then quietly, "There's no route there anymore." I thought he meant closed access, but he just took the clipboard and walked away. No explanation. Third night, I started paying attention. Not because I was scared, because I was bored. People notice weird things when they spend 8 hours underground alone. I checked maintenance schedules. No overnight crews. No level C work. Nothing. At 2:13. Click. Static. Then, maintenance personnel arriving level C. But this time there was more. A pause. Then, "Please acknowledge." I remember sitting perfectly still, waiting. The speakers hissed softly. I don't know why, but I suddenly remembered the note. "Do not acknowledge. No scheduled personnel below level C." I felt ridiculous. Actually ridiculous. Like I was participating in some office superstition. So I ignored it. 10 seconds later. "Please acknowledge." Same voice. Then silence. That was the first moment something felt wrong. Not scary. Wrong. Because recordings don't improvise. And I knew the previous nights hadn't included that. The rest of the shift dragged. Around 4, I checked storage rooms near lower access tunnels. Found old equipment, broken fans, dust. Then I found filing cabinets. Most empty. Some held maintenance records decades old. Water damage. Reports. Maps. One folder caught my attention. Personnel incident reports. Maybe 20 years old. I shouldn't have cared. But underground places make curiosity stronger. There wasn't much else to do. Most reports involved injuries. Equipment accidents. Then one entry mentioned communications anomalies. No details, just recommendations. Do not respond to unauthorized announcements. Report auditory inconsistencies. Maintain route schedules. Auditory inconsistencies. I remember reading that phrase twice. Then hearing footsteps. I looked up immediately. Nothing. Silence. just distant machinery. But I swear, for a second, I thought someone had stopped walking right outside the room. Fourth night, I brought real food, microwavable noodles, energy drinks. Figured I'd settle in. Around midnight, I noticed something new. The intercom crackled briefly. Then nothing. No message. Just static. At 1:15, static again. Longer. Then, maintenance personnel arriving level C. Wrong time. I sat there staring, then laughed nervously, because suddenly I wanted to hear 213 instead. Routine feels safe. Even stupid routines. 213 arrived. Click. Silence. Then, maintenance personnel arriving level C. Pause. Daniel. I froze. That's my name. Not common panic freeze. Not movie freeze. Just confusion. Because my brain spent a second trying to process whether I'd imagined it. Then, please acknowledge. My mouth felt dry immediately. I looked around the room. Empty. The speaker crackled softly overhead. I don't know why I whispered. No, not into the speaker, just to myself. Then silence returned. Complete silence. Around 3, I checked facility records, employee lists, current staff, former staff. I found missing entries, people whose records ended abruptly. No termination, no transfer, just stopped. One name repeated across maintenance reports. Ethan Voss. Over and over. Inspection initials. Night shift. Years ago. Then nothing. No exit paperwork. No resignation. Gone. I found Martin later that morning. Asked him directly. Who's Ethan? He stared. Long enough that I thought maybe he hadn't heard me. Then, don't go digging. That was all. No explanation. Just, don't. The next night, I almost didn't go. Seriously. I sat in my car outside the gate wondering why I cared. The job wasn't permanent. The pay wasn't worth this. But curiosity is stupid sometimes. And loneliness is worse. I went in. Around 1:30, I started hearing sounds beneath the facility. Not pipe sounds. Not machinery. Movement. Footsteps maybe. Far below. Slow. Like someone walking long distances. I checked lower maps. There were maintenance tunnels beneath level C. Old flood control sections. Mostly abandoned. No current access. At least officially. At 2:13. Click. Static. Then, my own voice said, "Hello." I stood up so fast my chair hit the wall. Because it wasn't similar. It wasn't close. It was me. Exactly me. Then silence. Then, Daniel. My voice again. I couldn't move. Cold rolled through me immediately. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Like hearing yourself on a recording unexpectedly. Only wrong. Because I had never said that. Not there. Not anywhere. Then, please acknowledge. My voice. My cadence. My breathing. I shut off the room lights and just sat there staring. Like darkness somehow made more sense. I didn't sleep the next day. I kept replaying it. Try to rationalize. Recordings. Pranks. Someone screwing with me. But nobody knew me. Nobody cared enough. By night 6, I started checking speaker wiring. Control systems. Audio records. Nothing. No archives. No store announcements. No logs. No evidence. At 3 in the morning, I found an old map hidden inside another maintenance folder. Hand-drawn additions. Tunnels beneath level C. Routes crossed out. Sections circled. One note said, "Voice repetition reported here." Another, "Do not follow audio." I remember feeling this pressure building behind my eyes. Like exhaustion. Like stress. Because suddenly all these scattered things started fitting together. Not logically. Just enough. Enough to make me uncomfortable. Enough to make me wonder if Martin knew everything. Enough to make me think Ethan Voss disappeared for a reason. That same night, I heard footsteps directly outside the break room. Clear footsteps. Not echoes. Not pipes. Walking. Stopping. Walking. I opened the door immediately. Empty hallway. Fluorescent lights humming. Silence. Then the intercom. Daniel. Right behind me. I spun so hard my shoulder hit the wall. Nothing. Only speaker static. Then quietly. Wrong direction. I ran. I actually ran. Didn't care. Didn't think. Just moved. Because that wasn't a recording. That felt immediate. Responsive. Like a conversation. I reached upper levels, breathing hard. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I told Martin I was quitting. He stared for a while, then asked, "What did it say?" Not if. What? I remember looking at him, really looking, and realizing he looked terrified. Not skeptical, not confused. Terrified. I said, "It used my voice." He closed his eyes, just for a second, then said, "It learns people." I laughed, not because it was funny, because I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. What? It listens. Silence. Then, it learns. I waited. He didn't continue. Eventually, below level C there used to be emergency overflow access. Long time ago. He looked exhausted. Tunnels flooded during a storm years back. I said nothing. He swallowed. People got trapped. Still nothing. They heard voices. I remember wanting details. Names. Explanations. Instead he said, "Leave. Just leave. No speech. No drama. Leave." I should have. I really should have. But I wanted proof. I wanted one thing I could point at and say I wasn't losing my mind. That night I brought my phone, audio recorder, flashlight, extra batteries. I waited near level C before 213. The corridor felt colder than usual. Concrete walls sweating moisture. Air still. No machinery nearby. At exactly 213. Static. Silence. Then, Daniel. Not overhead. Ahead. Down the tunnel. My blood went cold immediately, because there were no speakers there. None. Then again, Daniel. My voice. Farther away. I should have left. Instead I followed it. 20 feet. 30. 40. Past maintenance signs. Past closed access barriers. The tunnel narrowed. Darkness deepened. Then I saw movement. Not clearly. Not fully. Someone standing farther down. Human shape. Still. I raised my flashlight. The figure moved immediately. Not away. Not toward. Just. Shifted. Wrong somehow. Like delayed movement. Like someone copying motion half a second late. Then my phone buzzed. Message from Martin. Just 3 words. "Get out now." Then the figure spoke. My voice. Perfectly. "Daniel." I ran. No hesitation. No investigation. No curiosity. I ran. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Not chasing exactly. Matching. My pace. My rhythm. Every turn. Every step. When I ran faster, they ran faster. When I stumbled, they stumbled. Like synchronization. I reached level B and looked back once. Only once. Nothing there. Empty corridor. I quit the next morning. Didn't finish paperwork. Didn't explain. Didn't answer calls. Drove home. That should have been it. For a while it was. Weeks passed. Then months. I found warehouse work. Moved apartments. Life kept going. Mostly. Some nights, I still woke around 213. No reason. Just awake. Heart racing. Listening. Then about a month ago, I stopped at a gas station during a late drive. Small place. Middle of nowhere. I went inside. Bought coffee. Stood near refrigerators, deciding if I wanted anything else. Then I heard static. Faint. Very faint. My stomach dropped instantly. Because I knew that sound. Old speaker static. I looked around. There were ceiling speakers. Music played quietly. Country station. Nothing unusual. Then, click. Soft. Almost hidden. And somewhere overhead, very quietly, I heard maintenance personnel arriving. I stopped breathing. Nobody reacted. Cashier kept scrolling his phone. 2 customers walked past me. Then, "Please acknowledge." I left immediately. Coffee. Wallet. Everything. Just walked out. I've heard it 3 times since then. Different places. Different speakers. Grocery store. Parking garage. Hospital waiting room. Always faint. Always hidden beneath normal sound. Last night, I heard something else. Not over speakers. Not through headphones. I heard it in my apartment. Very softly. From somewhere near the hallway. My own voice. Just outside the bedroom. Saying, "Wrong direction.